Who says you need to be a millionaire to be a property investor? Do you know you stand to reap high rates of returns even as you're hunting for your first home during this downturn? But is it a good time to enter the property market right now, or is it wiser to hold out a little longer? And if so, for how much longer? How is it possible to determine the best or a fair price for your first or even next property? And what else do you need to know to protect yourself against the interests of self-seeking agents? And how can we even think of property investment when it's already so difficult to obtain a loan from the banks now? Well, Point Blank sets out to answer these questions for you.
Why people should recognize that they're actually investors, because at the end of the day, a lot of people don't recognize that they're investors.
Yeah, I wouldn't see myself as one, like even if I were to buy a home for my own stay.
But the interesting thing is, by virtue that you want to sell for profit, makes you an investor, because it is exactly, property in that perspective is exactly an investment. Unless you say you're going to buy it and it's a piece of land, and you're going to build and you're going to stay there forever, then the consideration is very, very different. But if you're going to buy, stay for a few years and sell, then you should, the person should actually consider something that they can actually sell it for. And then they also should consider things like, are they buying at the best price? Is it the best value? Should they buy it for the first place, in the first place? So these are things that we are saying that as a investor or as a homeowner, they should look at, because there's a distinct in psyche, and it's a distinct in psyche that gets a lot of frustration. For example, if you say you like this property because it suits your taste, it's near your mother's house, it's near good schools, and you're going to pay high price because of that. But when you later want to sell, the person who's going to buy for you may not see those as benefits, and that is where this distinct comes in. Okay, and because this distinct comes in, you're not able to meet what everyone is asking. And in the end, you feel very frustrated because you're asking yourself, hey, I thought this is a very good property, why can't I sell? And why don't people I get a lot of people coming to ask me, say, oh, is this property good? Is that property bad? Okay. I always like to tell them this, at the end of the day, in my point of view, there's no such thing as a good and bad property. Just as there's no such thing as a good and bad car. Some people may like a certain brand of car because it suits their temperaments, it suits their budget. It doesn't mean that other cars are bad. Similarly, for properties, there's no such thing as good or bad property. It's more of, does it suit the individual's or the investor's budget? Does it suit his needs? So let's say, for example, if someone wants to is looking for a family home, does a small place in town suit his needs? If it does, then I'll say he would consider it as a good property. If it doesn't, then maybe not. But does it mean that it's a bad property? No. To someone else, it might be a good property because he's a bachelor. He likes to stay in town because it's very convenient. To him, it's a good property. On top of looking at it as a place they like to stay, consider the investment aspect of it. So that once they consider that, they will have an easier time to sell, because they'll ask questions like, they will really ask questions like, is it value for money? Is it a good price? Can I sell it? These are things that they will have asked beforehand. And we are saying that, okay, these five, this is a proprietary self-coined approach. It's called the right approach. As a home buyer, I'm sure if, like, say, you're buying your own home currently, there are many things that's crossing your mind. Government policies, can I use CPF? How much can I loan? Will my outstanding loan be affected? Should I buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom? Should I buy something that face here, face there? All these are things that an investor would consider. And it will convolute the issue. To simplify the issue and to go at it in a very systematic, step-by-step approach, that's where the right comes in. So first and foremost, we are saying, let's look at the big picture first. RIGHT, big picture is realities. What is the current realities that we are facing right now? Currently, you're talking about, it's hard to get bank loans. Currently, you say the government have done away not too long ago with the deferred payment scheme. These are the things that's facing a buyer currently. Okay, and he should be aware of that. And once he's aware of that, then he must take a look at the market timing. It's now the best time to buy. Once you've settled the big picture realities, then now let's look at investment considerations. Investment consideration as in things like, what's your investment budget? What's your investment horizon? Because the decision will be very different if you say, I want to buy somewhere 3 years, 5 years, versus say, I want to buy somewhere that's going to, see me through my old age. Which means you're going to buy somewhere where it's big enough for you to have kids, big enough for your kids to grow up in a property. So for the first consideration, if you say I just want to go 3 years, 5 years, I want to rent out, you may want to buy a small place in town. If you say, I want to buy somewhere where I can actually, get married, settle down, have kids, the small place in town may not be suitable and may not cut it. So what you might look at is a semi-detached, things like that. So it's important to also know what's your investment consideration. So once you're able to identify that, then we can move on to the next stage called goals. And goals is what is the sort of rate of returns you're looking at. Because we already settled what you really want from a property already.
Right.
What rate of returns? Okay. And what's the purpose? Okay. Purpose will be things like, okay, am I looking for capital appreciation at the end of the day? Or at the end of the day when I don't want that property anymore, I want to just rent it out. Okay. So, of course, notwithstanding, what this means is for capital appreciation, which means you want to sell it, use the money to do other things. Rental is you want to keep the property and still hold on to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we talk about when we talk about goals. Okay, so once you're able to identify that when you don't want the property anymore, okay, then we can work backwards to look at hotspots.
Okay.
Hotspots is essentially a location. Which location would best meet your investment consideration and goals previously established?
Okay.
And target price is, after looking at your various properties in the hotspots, how much should the property at each of these hotspots go for? So these are the things that, at the end of it, after going through RIGHT, you should be coming up with something which you should be able to identify some properties that would best meet your needs. At the same time, enter at a good price so that subsequently when you sell it, you have a high chance of selling it for profits. So this is what RIGHT really talks about. People sometimes, I want to sell, but yet they don't know that they're going to sell eventually. And when they buy with the goal of selling and yet they don't sell, it gets very, very convoluted.
Yeah.
So we're saying, okay, that's why when we talk about RIGHT, part of goals is, okay, so at the end of the day, do you want to sell or do you want to rent? If at the end of the day you want to move to another place but you don't want to sell it, you're collecting rent, okay, then you should buy something that give you high rental yield. And based on that, maybe a cheaper free leasehold property will make more sense. If you want to buy something that you want to sell for huge profit so that you subsequently can use that profit to buy your next property, then maybe buying a freehold property would make more sense, because between the two, we know freehold generally is priced slightly higher than leasehold. So, all else equal. So this is a thing that would actually drive the investment decision. So, which goes back to the original point. It is not leasehold or freehold that should drive the investment decision. It should be, what do you really want out of it that drives whether or not you should get freehold or leasehold.
What is this margin of safety, and how do people actually, determine that margin of safety before they decide on a place?
I'm glad you asked this question. Margin of safety is actually a concept. The first time I read about margin of safety, it was in the investment books on Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is, I believe everyone knows he is currently I think he still is the world's richest man. He's a very astute investor. He started investing at a very young age. Margin of safety is something advocated by him after learning from his mentors. And how it works is you buy it at a price below the market price. Okay. So there are actually a few prices when we talk about. One is market price, one is value, and one is margin of. One is market price and one is value. So to illustrate the effects of market price and value, let's say if you were to go shopping, okay, market price is what you pay for a blouse on any other day, okay? When value is what you see of it, okay? That's how much value placed to it. So what happens is, when in a normal day, this is the market price, this is your value. If, let's say, your value for that particular blouse is higher than your market price, which means you see more value to buying the blouse, it makes sense, you're going to buy it.
Okay.
On an ordinary day, if the converse is true, if the market price is higher than what value you see out of it, okay, then in that case, you wouldn't buy it because you value it less. Okay, so margin of safety is similar, but in a discount, rather than the market price, everything is brought down one level. Okay, so the price instead of this high now, and assuming your value remains unchanged,
Right.
okay, just say previously, if it was higher, in discount, it'll be lower. So which means, would you buy it? Probably yes, lah. Because what this means is, there is you place higher value on the property, on the item,
fair price,
and if it is at a start state, you really want to get it. Okay, for this during a sale, the price is even lower. All the more you'll be influenced to get it because the price has gone way cheaper. Example for my own, when I actually used this when I wanted to sell my first property. So I bought my first property at this price and I actually sold it at this price. So the question is, how much did I really make from the property? A lot of people would just take, okay, selling price minus buying price, and that will be the answer. But we are saying that actually there are more to it than just that, and we should look at other things as well, such as your stamp fees, your agent fees, legal fees, property tax. After considering all those, after considering things like my interest, inflation, at that price of 830,000, I actually made a net profit of 53,000 after considering everything else. So to address the question, a lot of people think that as long as you sell the property at the price that you buy for, it is not true that you don't make any loss, because all these costs that I've just mentioned are real money, and they will actually account for the loss that your property will be making.
So long as I buy my house at price A and I sell it off at price A, I will not be making a loss.
In fact, that's what a lot of people think. But what we are saying is, when someone does that, he would have omitted and he wouldn't have accounted for things like your inflation, your interest rates, your cost of ownership, because when you own a property, you need to pay all the taxes, you need to pay for utilities. He wouldn't have accounted for that. And we actually, as part of our research and consultancy that we offer to people, we can actually help them work that figure out. So for example, let's talk about this. Okay, assuming if I actually sold it for the price I bought it at, after accounting for all the incidental costs, my real loss is 40,000. What this means is, to own that property for a period of 5 years, I've actually paid up 40,000 just for the privilege of ownership. And the IRR is a rate of return, and this is a way for us to compare. So if I had a sum of money and at the rate of returns of 1%, would it be better off if, say, I had invested in unit trusts or other forms of investment? From this, we can account for the property and use it as a basis of comparison with other forms of investment as well. Of course, this spreadsheet can also help us determine. So, assuming if that person is insistent on selling it for the price they bought it for, so how do they break even? How can it be cost neutral? Cost neutral, what you can do is you can increase the rental.
Okay.
You increase the rental to actually tell, you can actually increase the rental to reduce this deficit, to reduce this loss.
What about throwing in renovation?
Yes, you can include this.
Would that impact the figures in any way, significantly?
Of course. It depends. Let me take a step back. It will depend on how much you put in for renovation. If you put in 20, 30, 50K, it will add to that.
Okay.
And on top of that, if you are actually borrowing the money from banks for the renovation loan, it will be more significant because you are paying interest for the loan amount as well, for the renovation. So, like I was explaining halfway, if we want to reduce this deficit, what we can do is we can try to increase our rental. But how much should we increase our rental by? Using this, we can actually tell. So, assuming we will increase by this much, from 1,000, is it enough? From the answer, is clearly not. So, using this, we can actually find the correct point at which we rent the property out for. So, if we increase by another 100, from this, we can see we're actually in positive, we're in the black. And based on that, we know that, okay, if I were to rent, I should have rented this property out for 3,600 to be cost neutral. Anything more at this point, I've made a profit. And if I rented my property out consistently at this price, and anything more than my buying price, I would have made a profit already. So assuming if I increase this and I sell it for $1,000 more, I would already be in a profit. So from this, you can actually see how the different components react to each other and influence each other, so that you can see at the end of the day, have you made money or not? Past data, past performance is no indication of future performance. And all it takes is one random event, you can throw all your calculations out of the window. But short of anything, short of looking into the crystal ball, having tools like that will help people make informed decisions. A predictive model, a predictive price model, to tell us this: if you walk away from the property at that price, what is the chances of you being offered a property of a lower price subsequently? So this is what the model does. It calculates the probability of you being offered a lower price if you don't take it up at that point in time. Based on the prevailing conditions. Now, assuming if the last done price of a property is 1,800 per square feet, and the seller is asking for 1,280 per square feet, will it be a good buy? If you say no to 1,280, what is the probability of you getting a cheaper property the next time you go shop for it? Using this, we can actually run the simulation, and this is what we see. If you say no to this property, the chances of you finding a property as cheap or cheaper is only 5%. However, if you to change that, assuming the next after a few months has elapsed and the price actually went down even more,
1,006.
so it's just 1,006, and the same person is offering you comes back to you and offer you at 1,280. By running the model, you can tell that the chances of you walking away has increased, which means if you walk away now, you stand a 15% chance of finding a property that's cheaper.
And that's assuming the market doesn't experience or witness any drastic developments.
That's correct.
Okay.
That is based on the prevailing market conditions.